You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. This is episode 154 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, proudly brought to you by TechnicMotorsport.com. As always, I'm your host, David Hogan, the physiotherapist who knows the injuries and fitness needs of our sport of motocross and supercross. And we go through everything and anything moto here on the show because everything is always moto here on the AlwaysMoto network. This week's show, it's all Yamaha, it seems. We've gone blue. We are at the launch of the 2026 YZ450 for Yamaha Motor Australia. We were invited out to Appen last week, and this show is all about the launch of that YZ450 and a few things extra on that. We also get to talk to, so one, you're going to get my thoughts on the bike and the different specs that have come through for this model, but we also check in with Yamaha Japan's test rider, Jay Wilson, the Aussie boy. We check in with him about the bike and what he's up to. We got to talk to Jed Beaton about his injury, about re-signing with the team, what he thinks of the bike, his race bike. We get to ride his race bike. Yes, you'll hear about that as well. We talked to Aaron Tanti. He was there riding laps on the bike. They're already testing with the 2026 model for the Supercross season for CDR. Talk about him re-signing with the team. We also catch up with Dack, get his thoughts on the bike and some things that have been bugging him in trying to get riders signed for Supercross for 2025 in this Australian Supercross season that's about to get started here in just over a few weeks. So this show is massive, but it's a massive Yamaha one. So like I said, the main point of this show is the YZ450, the 2026 model launch. But we've got a bunch of stuff to check into here. We also got to ride the brand new Dunlop MX34 tyre, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But the main part at the end of this show is going to be all about Jed Beaton's Monster Energy CDR Yamaha bike that I got to throw a leg over. I did about 3 laps on it at Appen. That was enough for me to go, wow, and we'll talk about that later on. So stick around to hear about all those things that we've got coming through. There's plenty to this show. It's a massive show. Now, what do the factory teams from Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha have in common? Well, they use either KYB or Showa suspension, and they service them with genuine parts. Now, KYB and Showa, they have an Australian distributor, and that's TechnicMotorsport.com in Sydney. Why use non-genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumables when the genuine parts are available? They perform better, and they're usually only a day away with shipping these days. TechnicMotorsport.com is the place to go to for your genuine KYB and Showa, from seals to fork tubes to internal individual components and A-kit suspension sets for KYB and Showa. Technic has it. Use the Find My Bike tool on their website to find those compatible parts. New parts are always being added. And if you're not in Australia, that's okay. Technic has a currency converter on their website, a shipping calculator as well, and they ship daily with DHL to most countries. So check out TechnicMotorsport.com for all your suspension needs. Don't forget your other show supporters. We've got Pivot Pegs on board, Competitive Edge Performance, and Tech 167 3D Printing as well. You hear about those companies throughout different shows here. We also need your support. We've got our T-shirts available. You can donate to the show. You just need to email info@alwaysmoto.com to get an order of a T-shirt. If you want to donate, you need to find the links in our bios or the show notes. It's got discount codes for some of our supporters. It's got the PayPal link. It's all in there. Check it out. Head over to those bio links and you'll get straight there and support our show. All right, let's talk Yamaha. We'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, I'm Jay Wilson. I'm from the Yamaha factory racing team based here in Japan, and I'm always listening to AlwaysMoto.
All right, guys and girls, let's get into this introduction here that we attended for fullnoise.com.au and obviously us here, AlwaysMoto. We were invited out by Yamaha Motor Australia to the Appen Motocross Complex last week, that being the end of August there for the launch of this YZ 450, the 2026 model. Now, there's obviously some updates and stuff that have gone on with this model compared to the 2025 model. And we're going to run through some of those things here. We got to ride the bike. We got to hear all about it at a presentation and the changes that have been made, got some specs on it. So we're going to try and pass on that information to you here to give you as much as you can handle information-wise about this bike to help improve your knowledge of it and hopefully, encourage you to purchase it if you're on the fence about it. If you're just looking for more information about why you should buy it, well, yeah, you're welcome in. So let's get to it. So like I said, we were at Appen Motocross Complex on last Thursday. Complex was actually pretty good considering the amount of rain that we had throughout the few weeks prior, and Appen being a clay setup. It can sometimes get real boggy in that track. It can sometimes be real slick. I've ridden it in some terrible conditions over my time. I used to live not far. It was basically my local track there for a number of years while I was living in Western Sydney, southwestern Sydney there. I've since moved up more north of Newcastle, so a bit of a trek down to get there this time, but familiar with the track. I hadn't actually ridden it since they'd turned it around, so it's been a number of years for me actually. I'm not sure when they turned that around, but the last time I'd ridden that main race track that's the national track that you see on the TV, it actually went the other way for me, so it was different. They, obviously it's a few different jump combinations now going the opposite direction, but generally I was familiar with the venue. I knew what to expect from it. The jumps at that venue, I'm not going to say they're easy. The step up the back was a bit of a challenge in the wind that we had going on the day, but generally speaking, the jumps are all achievable for just about every level of rider, and particularly with the 450 motor, there's no worries about coming up short. You've got plenty in the bank in terms of the motor side of things. Now, the bike itself, let's set the scene. Obviously, 2026, there's been some changes to this model. Now, we're calling it Big Blue. Big Blue is a Big Blue bike. There is also the 70th anniversary edition. It's their white and red in those retro colors that they've got as well, and it's a little bit more pricey. I think it's $200 more. We'll get to the prices at the end of these things. But the bikes look good. Generally speaking, there's some plastic aesthetic changes in terms of shapes and some design colors and bolt locations and stuff that has just improved the overall look of the bike. But it's a high-performance machine. This bike, over the past few years, has won plenty of shootouts. It's definitely been the favorite bike for most media outlets. Now, obviously, we're not comparing it at this point to other 450s in the 2026 range. We haven't had access to those just yet. This is purely just thoughts on the YZ, but it's got to live up to some expectations here because obviously the bike prior was very good. So the question obviously is, was this bike any better? And we'll get to that. Hold your horses. We're coming to it. Now, things that they tried to improve, their focus in 2026 was to improve stability and forward drive of the bike. Now, for anybody who was a 2025, 2024 rider, they will probably tell you that the bike has plenty of grunt and wants to stand up, lift the front out of corners. And that's something that obviously Yamaha recognized and felt that they were not utilizing the performance as well as it could be, and they were losing some of that ability to drive forward because of the lift that was coming on. So they wanted to get the chassis and the suspension settings to actually work with the motor better and allow you to go forwards rather than up and forwards. So that's something they're focusing on, as well as then, so they've done changes, but they've also then progressed massively in terms of they finally moved away from a cable clutch at Yamaha. They've gone to the Nissan hydraulic system, and that's a bit of a big talking point for this 2026 model. Now, you'll hear me talk about it with Jay Wilson later on in this podcast, and kind of coincidentally that it's now finally on the bike at production, whereas it wasn't for a number of years, and that was sort of maybe somewhat guided by a particular rider, Eli Tomac, being a cable clutch in favor of. And he may have potentially delayed it coming out, but now that he might not be, as the rumors go, that he might not be with Star Yamaha because there's no announcement of him re-signing just yet, that is why this might be appearing on the bike this year. It has been. Now, interestingly enough, the GYTR components that you can buy, those special aftermarket parts from Yamaha, you've been able to get a hydraulic clutch system to put onto the bike for a number of years now. but it's just different in the fact now that it is available from production. It's when you buy the bike, it's on it. So that's a big thing. And as you hear from Jay, that was a push by the consumer wanting that on the bike. So interesting that it's there and finally available. Now, for me, getting to ride this bike, you've got to always remember when you go to these launches, everything's pretty, team trucks are there lots of times. So we had the CDR Yamaha truck there. We had Aaron Tanti, Jed Beaton, Craig Dack. The CDR mechanics were there. They had Jed Beaton's bike on display, and then they teased us with the fact that we could ride it after lunch, but we had to ride the 2026 model first. So that was a big bucket list to tick off for me, to ride a CDR Yamaha factory bike. That was cool. We'll get to that later in the show. But we had to ride the 2026 first, and obviously you've got to then, break in the track, and there's only sort of 10 guys going out on track, so a freshly prepped track doesn't rut up too much, and particularly when there's a little bit of mud involved and water involved, the lines can be just stick to the one line all day, because the inner and outers might have a puddle that nobody wants to go near. And when you're trying to get photos at mid to end of the day, you don't want to be completely covered in crap when that happens. You want to look pretty for the photos. So there's a little bit of that aspect that goes into it as well. But the bikes are set stock, completely stock. So you've got to then go and take your riding style and get comfy on an unfamiliar bike and try and make little tweaks that are available to make it so that you can write and say nice things about the bike, obviously, because that's what we're here to do. We're trying to point out that the bike is more than capable, and it is. Now, for me, what happened when I get these bikes, generally all the time, I'm the same all the time, it seems. The front ends are too high, the rear ends are too low. They're either too soft or too harsh, and that harsh feeling usually comes from a soft initial feel that goes through and hits the mid-stroke, in these motocross bikes pretty harshly. So I end up making a lot of tweaks to these things. There's obviously the things we adjust in terms of bar position and clutch position straight away to try and just make it so you can find those things, and rear brake pedal heights that you can find them. So, safety straight away. So I adjust those things, obviously get it set up. But then for me, after a couple of sessions straight away on the bike, I managed to find a very comfortable setting very easily for my style, which is a more front-end steering sort of person. And obviously liking that front-end feel, and I rely heavily on my front tyre to get me going where I need to go. I do light up the rear occasionally in terms of doing some pivot turns, but generally speaking, I'm going into my corner in that area one, looking for my front end to be biting and steering me through those corners. And to do that, I'd push the forks through. So I had 5 mil showing of the fork above the top triple clamp. I stiffened the front, which was interesting because they were set basically full soft, the bike that I had. And now I don't know if that's going to be consistent across all these bikes. Normally they sort of set them at like midpoint, which is about 10 clicks. But this one was set at about, I think it was 24 I counted that they were set out. So I actually went back into about 10, worked pretty good. I stiffened the rear. The sag was okay, but I run a low sag number. Depends on how you want to look at it. Number 90. My bikes, I end up running around 90, 95 sag. I like my rear tall so that it's, pushing my front end through that corner and making the front end work. And that's about where I was. I was about 100 rider sag on this bike, and that felt good with those front end tweaks that I'd made. I had to lower the rear brake pedal a lot. Again, whether that's just the way they're all going to be set, or whether there's just this particular one when they put it together, it was really high. So made those tweaks, right? So those first 2 sessions for me out on the track don't count for nothing. I'm just trying to feel my way around the bike, adjust it to a point that I can be comfortable, and then I can go out and, give it some, essentially, and see what I'd like and dislike about the bike from there. And I got to say, from that point on in the day, once I got that comfortable in terms of that suspension and geometry position, I was loving the bike. The stock motor in this thing, and I've described it in my full noise article, it's a beefy engine. It's a Yamaha 450. You hear lots of things about it being a strong motor, and I haven't been on one in a couple of years of YZ450. Been on their 250, but not on their 450 for a couple of years. And yeah, it's a beefy engine. It's got got it wherever you need it. And luggability in third gear is insane. Just in that stock arrangement, no changes to the mapping at this point. We're just talking, I just rolled it out of the box and the motor is absolutely fine. Very comfortable with it. Power wherever you wanted it. You know, you could just think about, I've just come out of this snotty little corner that's a bit boggy. I've got to get up and over this uphill step up. Bit of throttle, whoop, over you're gone. Before you even knew what's happening. No worries about trying to make jumps. The power on the bike just makes it easy to do those sorts of things. So that side of things was nice. Now, the big part of the day for me was finding out more about the Power Tuner app. So we'll get to that in just a sec. Just to cover off a couple other little things here. The foot pegs, rider triangle, I found it was fine. I'm 177 centimeters tall. That's about 5'9" in the old language. I didn't have an issue in the rider triangle. I know lots of people talk about the putting foot pegs that are down and back to open it up. I'm not that tall. I didn't find it an issue. I didn't find that the mounts were any issue. I've heard about people standing on the mount, not the peg. I didn't have that issue. The seat, always talk about seat covers and seat shapes and foams because obviously everybody's butt is sensitive. Now mine, if you recall back to when I did the Triumph introduction for the 450, the seat on that thing is aggressive. And I got to a point in the day where I had to stop riding that bike because my ass was so chapped it wasn't funny. No problem with the Yamaha in that aspect. The seat cover itself, it's a two-way grip setup. Now, it actually is less grippy to slide forward, so it's actually letting you come forward, which is what you want, but it prevents you from coming back, as in it's more grippy to slide backwards. So it tries to hold you on the bike. I had no issues with it from a grip point of view. What I did have some issues with is the seats on the Yamahas, and this was the same back when I rode the 250 for their intro 2 years ago. It's a very roundy seat. It's not like a sides, like an up sides and then flat across the top. It's just round, right? And for whatever reason, I just feel like that round is just sitting in my butt. It's an uncomfortable feeling and it's a very firm foam. So it pushes in and I get a bit tender on the bones of my butt from this seat. So that's one thing that I probably would look to change if I had this bike for a bit longer, is to find a different seat profile just to make me a little bit more comfortable there. But the rest of that aspect was absolutely fine. I'm not worried about the pegs. I'm not moving them down. The bar setup as well, it's in the back hole of the triple clamp. I would love to try that in the front hole, given more time, just to see if that brought me forward more. And then, because I was actually talking about this with one of the other guys throughout the day during the testing, the seats on the Yamahas, and if you should, or everyone should realize this by now, but the Yamahas have their fuel cap under the seat because the tank is in a different position because the air box is up on top, right? If you didn't realize that, look it up. Everybody knows this, but the engine is very different slant and it's ram air from the top, forcing the air in through the motor. That's how they get this beefy motor. So the airbox is up on top where the traditional bike has a fuel cap. Now, because this doesn't have a fuel cap, I lose my reference point of where I should be sitting on the seat. That little pad piece that pops out where the fuel cap is underneath, that is actually an additional lengthening of the seat, I feel like that's where my seat actually ends. I don't sit onto it. So I was wondering if then my cornering positions is obviously out because I'm losing this reference. So I'm sitting further back than I normally would on the bike because of this fuel cap being missing, hidden. So I was actually thinking about this and on my way home from the test that if I went to that front hole of the bar mounts on the triple clamp, would that actually help my positioning on the seat better? And I would use that last, 20 centimeters of seat that's in front of me that I always seem to not sit to. And would that help some of my cornering with this bike and again, get me over the front like I usually want to be? And I think that's something I'd love to try out a bit further here. And maybe something you might consider as well when you get the bike. Think about these things and where you are on the bike and what's impacting it, and just see. It might be no good, but until you try it, you don't know. So it's worth investigating some of these things when you have time. Maybe you're got a track in your backyard. Maybe you're just down at a ride day and you've got time between sessions that you're going to go out for. Yeah, just move the bars, see what it does. If it's no good, put it back. If it's great, leave it. things you want to try out. So that's my rider triangle, the ergonomics, the plastics. Nothing caught in terms of the plastics. They were great. Nice and smooth for where you're transitioning through. My boots didn't hook on anything. That's always something you can sort of get a little bit accustomed to with your personal ride. You know where everything is, so you sort of work around it. But then you get on a different bike and all of a sudden your boot's hooking on a piece of the plastic that you didn't think of, and you're stuck in that position and trying to get out of it to get to a brake pedal or something, and it becomes a bit unsafe. But I had no issues like that. The Yamaha is beautifully designed in that aspect. So yeah, very happy with the ergonomics, the feel, the seating on, all that sort of stuff. Let's get to the power tuner app, because that was my big next improvement that I did on this bike. I haven't really played with the power tuner before. Yes, when we did the Triumph introduction, they had, I think it's 8 presets available that you can select and put it in as a secondary map. You got to leave the primary map as position 1. You can change the set position 2 to one of your other 8 in the app. But what Yamaha's power tuner app allows you to do is adjust everything, essentially. You got a couple of presets. I think there's 3 in this app. You can then essentially copy any of those, and then that copied version, you can rename it and reshape the whole thing. You're able to move the fuel that's available at different throttle percentages, at different rev ranges. You're also then allowed to move the ignition percentage at those same throttle percentage increments and rev range increments. So you can make this bike do almost anything you want. You've got from -5 to +5 variability on each of those options. There's 25 sections you can change on each of these fuel and ignition versions of the map. So I am a rider that loves to use low throttle percentage, which is rare. Most people rev it a bit more than I do. Some a lot more aggressively than I do. But I like that power to be low down, very low down. I don't rev the bike loud, so it's not getting high in the RPM range, but I'm also not getting much throttle opening, as in throttle percentage opening. So I'd be like 20 to 40% most of the time, maybe 0 to 40% most of the time. I'm rarely above sort of 60%. That's a very rare case. So I chatted with Tomo, one of the Yamaha mechanics, and he stepped me through the power tuner app, which was really awesome of him to do. It gave me a great insight in how it worked, but also it showed me that I can move this power to pretty much wherever I want. So I got him to make a map with me that did exactly what I wanted it to do in terms of have all this low down power and almost immediate throttle response by giving it more fuel, giving it more ignition in those early percentages. Like we only did basically the 40% throttle opening, and I think it was 4,000 or 6,000 RPM was our range that we're working in, and we brought those up. So we went from zeros, which was this preset map, and we took it up to 4s and 5s, 4s, and then 3s as it sort of pitched down towards that higher revs and higher throttle percentages back to the zeros. Now that made a massive difference to this bike for me. And that tells me that this map, this power tuner app can do these things for you as well. And you've got to then jump in there and have a go at these things. It was super obvious the changes that I'd made, because you're able to put it in on, you can change what map position 1 and position 2 if you want. But what I did to be able to tell that I was making gains, I left map 1 as the stock position. I knew what it was. I liked it from when I first got on the bike. That was not an issue. I just wanted to see if 1, I could make it better, and 2, if I could move the power to where I wanted it. And so we put it in position 2. So you don't have to stop and put it in neutral or anything to change maps. You literally, as you're going, just on your left thumb, press the map button, the light will turn on, you're in map 2. So I was going from corner to corner, on, off, map 1, on, map 2, on, map 1, on, map 2, on, checking myself that this had made changes, and I could tell straight away that it had made massive improvements. And when I then got out on track even more, the bike was awesome. I gotta say, I was not expecting to be so stoked on this bike. I had a lot of fun doing the Triumph 450 intro. I have a lot of fun on my own Sherco 300 two-stroke. I've never been a massive Yamaha guy, but this power tuner made the experience unbelievable. It was cool to be able to do this. So if you haven't already used it, if you're a Yamaha owner existing, get in there and play with it, guys and girls. It's awesome. But if you're going to buy one of these bikes, download that app, connect your phone to your bike, make these changes, and I'm talking literally seconds to make these changes and seconds to do the upload. It's really easy to do, but you will make this bike exactly what you want it to be, and that is something that is just, in this day and age, the electronics and the adjustability is fantastic. So take advantage of it. Seriously, it's so good to do. Now, you can go the complete opposite of what I did in terms of putting the power down low. You could put it all up high if you wanted. You could put it through the whole damn thing. But just know that you can do it. That's the main thing. So that was the awesome part about it. All right, let's get to the chassis and the suspension changes that went along with this 2026 model. Now, the main thing that they were trying to do here, they've made some chassis changes. So they've changed the down tube at the front. They've changed the front engine mounts to 2mm thinner to give it more comfort. And then they've changed the rear engine mounts. Now, they're going to be called asymmetrical engine mounts at the rear, meaning that they hold the motor they're not exactly the same. They hold it in a different position from the right one to the left one. So, but in turn, it actually puts the motor in a more, and this sounds really stupid because you just said asymmetrical mounts, but it's in a more symmetrical position is the overall motor position within the chassis based on the other chassis characteristics. It's an engineer thing. I get it, but if you ask me to explain it any more than that, that's as far as I'm going to go because I'm going to sound like an idiot. But essentially what it does is make this bike have less side to side. When you are accelerating, hitting bumps, taking off jumps, trying to get out of a rut, it's not going to jump side to side so much. It feels more planted and more, what's the word we want to use here? Basically that it's going straight. It will go straight for you. Whereas previous models, it was a bit looser and would step side to side just a fraction. They've definitely improved that. Now, that's coupled with some revised valving settings for the suspension front and rear, which is pretty much always going to happen because the bikes are always changing year to year. They're always going to basically change those settings just purely on some simple little things, even just that the test riders, guys like Jay Wilson, who you'll hear from later, are just going to evolve what they think that the consumer is needing over more and more learning time on these bikes. So even when they have minimal other chassis sort of changes or motor changes between, minor parts of the model changes, they'll still probably 9 times out of 10 have a revised suspension setting. Now, on the suspension, one thing that I did notice and was cool, because I've got KYBs on my bike, but they're the Gen 2s, not Gen 3s. The tops of these fork caps, the compression adjuster is a hand adjuster. You don't need a screwdriver for the compression. And likewise on the rear now, the rear shock compression adjuster also is a hand adjuster. So you can do this on the fly. You do not need to pull in and get a screwdriver for compression adjustment in the fork or the shock, which is a really nice thing. Yes, you still need it for the rebound, but at least if you're going, all right, quickly want to make a change, you're sitting on the line, you're like, I want to stiffen it up, I forgot. Yep, sitting there, click, 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 just by the hands, done, front and rear. Simple as. So that toolless aspect is a nice little feature with these KYB suspensions that are front and rear on this bike. Now, what else we got here? We already talked about the sag, so we've covered that. We're 100mm. We covered the suspension upgrade. We covered the power tuner. We covered the ergonomics, the handling. We've talked about that. Now, just on that handling side of things, as much as we're talking about the bike going forward more because of that chassis changes, which it does, and it does really nicely, if you are in the wrong position or you give this thing a handful, it's still going to stand up. It's still going to lift the front wheel. It's not going to just go, oh yeah, my chassis changed and I'm going to drive forwards and flat. No. This is a beefy engine, guys and girls. If you give it some, it will still pull a wheelie without you even thinking about it. So you have to be in the right positions when you're trying to exit your corners. Don't just think that, they've made chassis changes, it's going to solve all my problems. Nah, not doesn't work that way. But let's talk about some specs. Now, from 2025 to 2026, they have actually made the overall bike 5mm shorter. It's not as long. So 5mm shorter. Same width, same overall height, same seat height. The wheelbase itself, that's where that 5mm difference comes in. It's 5mm shorter wheelbase in a 2026. The ground clearance, because of that wheelbase, is actually 5mm less. It is 5mm ground clearance closer to the ground. They've also changed the caster angle in that steering. They went from 26.9 degrees to 27.5. So they've increased that rake, but they've changed the trail. They've moved it out to 123.5 from 120. So they've just, like I said, with the chassis side of things, they've just made little tweaks to improve it just a tiny bit further for where they're trying to make this bike be stable, which is awesome. And they've, in my humble opinion, they've succeeded so far. The one aspect that they've had to make some change, that made a change here, that you probably for the negative side of things, and I think this is purely just down to the fact they've got a hydraulic clutch system on it, so you're carrying some fluid, some bigger componentry there. The bike's gone from 109 to 110 kilos, and that's the wet weight. So that's fully fueled, with hydraulic fluid, etc. So up to 110 kilos. Not a massive thing, but I think for the fact that it's got a hydraulic clutch on it, you should be happy with that. Other part of that too is that Yamaha has made the step early to be 2027 Euro spec noise limits ready already. They are already there. This 2026 model has the 109 decibel capabilities. It will pass that range. What that's meant is that they've got a different muffler on it, so that's a little bit heavier with the extra packing and sound deadening things that need to go on. They've also got a different air box that's a bit more closed off and a bit bulkier. So again, there's a little bit of weight in those things there. So yes, the hydraulic system, but they've made those tweaks there to the bike to be Euro sound ready a year in advance. Now, on that, Craig Dack will lead to this a little bit, but you can put some of your past models' pieces onto the current model and still be exactly the same. You didn't hear that from me. So hydraulic clutch. Let's talk hydraulic clutch. I think it's awesome that they've made this move. It's probably overdue, but the fact that it's on there now is awesome. The one thing I will say about it is that the master cylinder up on the handlebars does stick out a little bit. When you look at this bike and some of the images of the bike, it stands out pretty good. And for me, I think that just means that I'll be looking for a little bit of protection on it, whether that's those little carbon fiber master cylinder covers or whether that's handguards. Now, I'm a guy who runs handguards on every bike anyway because I like my fingers not to get smashed with roost. But I think that would also then add to some protection of that master cylinder. It just seems to stand out. Maybe it's because it's never been there before and it looks different for a Yamaha, but I felt like that Nissan system, that master cylinder just stood up and out a little bit more. But anyway, it basically, for anyone who's been a long Yamaha rider and was used to the clutch, if you've ever ridden a buddy's bike, an Austrian bike, whichever one's got, hydraulic system on it, it feels exactly like that. It's consistent, it's smooth, it's not overly heavy, and it will just be the same as it always is across the whole day that I rode, and I'm not very heavy on a clutch, so don't take my word for it, but I had no issues with the clutch. It was consistent all day. It felt exactly the same from the start to the finish. I was really happy with it. So I'm quite fine with it being there. For those guys who are cable clutch abusers and like to adjust it, you might take some getting used to, but everybody else is going to go, oh yeah, sweet, hydraulic clutch, jump on, away we go. No issues sort of thing. So yeah, don't worry about that. Now, a couple of little tweaks around the body side of things as well. One, we talked about some styling and practical design touches. One of those is the fact that the side covers on these bikes used to require 3 bolts to take it off. 2 being 8mm T-bar head bolts, 1 being an Allen key bolt. Now they've changed for 2026, they've changed this slightly. Those bolts are still there, but what they've done is where that Allen key bolt, it's actually a different separate piece of plastic, and the main side shroud actually clips in behind that. So it's now only needs you to take the 2 8mm bolts out and then unclip it, and you can take that off. So it's made it quicker to get access to that. Made it one tool, not two. Nice little improvement, Yamaha. Well done. Now, what did we like about this bike? Obviously, the power tuner. Obviously, the beefy engine. Obviously, the suspension and chassis tweaks as well. Great. Once I made those changes that I talked about at the beginning of the show there, loving it. Things that I didn't like, and there's not many of them, trust me, guys. There's not much at all here. One, I already told you about it, the seat. Two, and look, the seat's not that bad. Honestly, if you think about it, I could put up with it, but I don't have to. I'd probably make a tweak if I got the chance to ride these things, have it as my personal bike for a while. I'd probably try and get something a bit different there. The only other thing that I'd probably get changed straight away, I don't know if anybody really loves the Yamaha standard grips, but I feel like they've been the same since 1985. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But look, I'm going to be getting some different ones. I just like the full diamond. I'm not a fan of half waffles. I'm not a fan of, plasticky, hard plasticky type feel grips. I like the grips to be soft and that. So, look, I changed those. Outside of that, I'm pretty stoked. I will mention that for people who like their front brake being super positive, and I have heard this from other media outlets as well, but the front brake on the Yamaha is just fine, but it could be better. And for me, I reckon, because I'm a front, like I said, front end steering guy. I like to use my front brake a lot to drag through corners, to pull me into ruts, but I also rely on it heavily. I want a tiny bit more feel and a tiny bit more stopping power. There is from GYTR a braided front brake line upgrade kit. I think I'd be going and getting that pretty quickly, quick smart on the bike. So consider that if you're getting one of these and you are a front brake heavy sort of person, check out that GYTR system. It might be just that thing that makes this bike just that even bit better than it already is. All right. That's pretty much it. The verdict on this thing is that it's awesome. There's no two ways about it. What we're going to do here, well, one, let's talk price. We'll give you the price. For the blue, the stock standard Yamaha blue, it's 15,749 Australian. For the 70 edition, anniversary edition, red, white, retro coloring, it's 15,949. So $200 more for the white. But big blue works just fine. Trust me, it looks good. So that's the pricing. From here, what we're going to do on the podcast, we're going to bring in Jay Wilson. We're going to bring in Aaron Tanti. We're going to bring in Jed Beaton. And then after Jed Beaton, I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about my experience riding Jed Beaton's factory CDR Yamaha.
Hey guys, it's Aaron Tanti and you're listening to the AlwaysMoto podcast.
Right, big introduction here coming for this one. Obviously, this is a big, heavy Yamaha introduction about the 2026 YZ450. And we've got heaps of guests on this episode, not just from the CDR Yamaha guys here in Australia. But this next guest, he was an Australian. He's a bit overseas at the moment. He's a former World Junior Champion, former multi-time Australian Motocross Supercross Champ, New Zealand Motocross Supercross Champ, multi-time Japan champ, but you probably know him these days mostly as just the guy in Japan that's the Yamaha test rider. It's Jay Wilson. How are we doing, Jay?
Thanks for having me on, mate. It's been a while since I've been on the podcast or done a lot of interview stuff, and it's exciting that I can be a part of this and also hopefully provide some information to the Australian listeners where I'm from, but also globally. It's been a very exciting time for me over the last few years, and it's exciting to talk to you.
Yeah, no, look, I reached out. Obviously, I was going to the test for the Australian introduction last week, and I thought, I always see and hear talk about Jay and what he's doing. Obviously, over there in that Japanese national championship mostly is where sort of things pop up from time to time, and I thought, you know what, he'd be a great one to just get on and get his thoughts and find out what he was maybe partly responsible for in terms of these different parts of the bike. So it was just a great opportunity to, catch up with you sort of thing. So I appreciate you making some time for us. And as you said, you're already been in the gym, you're already ready to get sweating, and you've got some testing going on later today. So you've got a big little schedule happening, and you're also just back from Europe. So you're not a guy that's sitting still at the moment either.
No, that's for sure. I experienced my first summer here in Japan the first year I was over here, and mate, that'll be the last summer that I probably experienced here in Japan. It was a bit of a shock to the system. I come from Queensland where I deal with a bit of heat, but mate, this Japanese summer is unbelievable. So, I'm fresh off the plane from Europe. I was there for 5 weeks. We completed some testing over there, working with the race teams, and then also communication globally, and also I was coming off a bit of an injury from the first half of our season, so I had about 7-8 weeks off, so it was nice to get back in I started off my first day at Lommel, and mate, that was a shock.
That would have been a hard work to coming off an injury to go straight to Lommel. Yeah, that's awesome.
So no, it was it's been good though. We're back in Japan now, and we've got 3 rounds left of the Japanese Championship and plenty of testing left. So, looking forward to the rest of the season, mate. And, just excited to be here and have a chat to you.
So just quickly touching on something that you've just spiked an interest in for me. My background's physio, and I have obviously a lot of talk about the injuries in our sport and stuff here. But for you as a test rider, do you just get lumped with heaps of paperwork and stuff when you're injured in the test riding world? Because obviously you can't get on the bike as such. Is that just you're the paperwork guy for a while?
I mean, I'm pretty fortunate, under my position with Yamaha Japan, I hold a lot of roles. I'm a racer. I'm a test rider. I work with global communication, working with race teams globally. I talk with Australian guys, New Zealand guys, Europe and America, and I'm just trying to understand what's going on in the racing world for us at Yamaha, and then trying to communicate that with the Japanese as well. And then on top of that as well, I've had some success the last few years. We've started up the JW Innovation program, which is supporting the next Japanese riders, the younger generation, to hopefully put them in a position where they're at a level they can go race globally. As we saw, they raced in New Zealand this year, and there were some good results there. And we won the 250 championship last year, and we're first and second in it this year here in Japan. So, like I said, I've got many sort of roles, that being racing, testing, communication globally, and then also development of the younger generation. So, a bit going on.
Not just the one trick pony, and obviously don't just have to sit down on the couch when the injury kicks in these days. You still got to work. So it's good to hear that there's more to it than just the bike time, and that you're sort of left out on the cold maybe when injured. But it's good to hear. Now let's get to this.
That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Now let's get to this 2026 model. Obviously, some slight changes this year in terms of chassis, a little bit of the motor to do with the noise side of things that they've come early to the party with in terms of the Euro noise limits. The big probably talking point for a lot of people would be the fact of move to a hydraulic clutch. So there's a bunch of things that have happened to it, and I gather you were involved in some of this, if not all of this, in terms of getting it to the market in the way that it is in the format. Was there a particular thing that you guys focused on that the 2025, wasn't doing well, or that you wanted to work on outside of those things that I just touched on, or were they the basic things that you've just focused into for this model?
I mean, to be honest, I was on in 2023, I moved on to the 450, and that was a new generation of motorcycles. That's when we come out with the new motorcycle. And basically, with my job here, we're in a racing condition, but I'm trying to diagnose or give feedback to Yamaha and give information on where we can be better. And then from that point, we start talking globally. What are some of the, complaints or some of the things that where we could be better? And then we start analyzing that, and then start moving on how we can be better for the next generation of motorcycle. And with that, one of the biggest things I think many manufacturers are having a challenge with is with noise. And with noise, when you reduce noise, you start to lose power. And when you losing noise as well. You're creating a lot of heat. So durability and things like that become a bit of a challenge. And then creating a power is also a bit of a challenge. But so with this, our goal was to try create a more comfortable bike with keeping, the traditional Yamaha, which Yamaha has always been known as good power, especially from the fourth. So trying to maintain that with giving better rider comfort for the consumer. And I think with the new model, we've really, we've achieved that. And I think we're in a pretty good position. I look forward to hearing more information from the public and what's to come from this. I think we've done quite a good job. So really looking forward to the next year and to hear some of the feedback from the public and also from the race teams and what it looks like in the future.
Yeah, no, it's already, and I gather you already start probably getting some of that back, because when I was talking to the CDR guys there for the Supercross side of things, they're already onto this 2026 model and obviously making steps in terms of development with it for what they're going to do here in a couple of weeks' time at the opening round in Redcliffs. But yeah, you guys must rely a lot on feedback in terms of what you're then going to go ahead and work on in the next models.
Yeah, for sure. And, the public comment is very important for sales and things like that. So it's always, as a racer, we tend to like things that are maybe a little bit too powerful for the normal consumer, or too rigid for the normal consumer. But that's a balancing act. Like we want the best performance, but we also then want to make sure our sales follow with that. So it's like it's a balancing act, and I think we've done quite a good job and made some good improvements with this new model.
That's got to be a hard part for you as like a top level racer, and you've been a top level racer for quite a while now, to then be going, all right, what does an 80 kilo average speed guy who rides once a week want out of his suspension settings? Like, that's got to be a difficult thing for you at times to go, on this track at this point, I've actually got to maybe slow down and think about how they're going to hit all these extra bumps that I'd probably skip over the top of.
Yeah, and another thing as well is you've got to think there's so many different tracks and soil and conditions, mud, sand, hard pack. So it's about trying where is our best base, and where is our base that we can be in a good window, that we can have some adjustability in that window. It's maybe not going to be the best on every condition, but we're in a window that it's pretty good, and you can make some small adjustments to get it to the window that you need it to be in. So that's always important, and it's something that's been quite nice for me, because as a racer you focus solely just on your performance and how you can be better, and you're always looking for 1%. And don't get me wrong, it's a new challenge with testing, and it's been something that's really positive for me, because I guess I'm an over-analyzer and an overthinker, and that's been some traits throughout my career, and something that's probably held me back somewhat throughout my career, not being able to perform always to my international at my very best. But it's because I overanalyze and overthink, and it's hey, this is not for me. This is the project. This is the goal, and if I can accomplish that goal, and that's positive. And that's something working with race teams has been really positive for me, because working with I work with Hayden Deegan for a few years. They're trying to get a base set up, and it's okay, I watch him, and then I listen to some of the comments, and then he goes away, and then okay, I can start my project, and I know the goal and what we're trying to chase. So when I'm setting up for myself, you're sometimes going around in circle, because hey, is that what I want?
Yeah.
Does it feel good? With the production stuff and with race stuff, working for other riders, it feels like it's a much clearer goal for me, and quite simple, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it might actually be easier, because you're not trying to make yourself 100% happy and second guessing yourself. You've actually got input from other people to go with it. So, and if it's not perfect for what you're riding, well, it's probably better for them, like that's what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, it might be simpler to set a bike up for somebody else, which is actually kind of funny in that sense. So, but your analytical brain that you mentioned obviously helps you out in this testing world that you're now predominantly in.
Yeah, and it's just about trying to find what works for me and understanding what I have to offer and how I can utilize that. So it's been very cool experience here, and working with the new model has been it's been like quite a good challenge and something learning about myself, but also learning about what not only the racer wants, but what the consumer wants.
Now, on the changes, I think one of the big ones and the talking point for most people who are like Yamaha long-standing, purchasers, the switch from the cable clutch to the hydraulic clutch. That's got to be a big thing for you guys to move over to that. And obviously a lot of durability testing that would have to go into that, and confirmation. Now, you have had GYTR bolt-on versions of this over the previous, and I don't know how many years, but it's been there for a little while. Why the shift to put it on the production model now? And do you even know that? Or are you happy that it's there now too, I guess?
I mean, you look at the consumer. The consumer is obviously the direction of what they want. There's been a long time comment of why we don't have hydraulic clutch. And to be honest, like Yamaha's clutch has been really good for such a long time. But with that, we want to make sure when we do release something like that, that we do believe in the product that we have. And we've went through a lot of testing to get to this point. And it's the first sort of step for Yamaha with the hydraulic clutch. And for, I guess, stage one, I think we've done a really good job with the hydraulic clutch. Like a lot of these manufacturers have had such a long time now with the hydraulic clutch, so they've been able to continue to work on this over the years, and I think this is just stage one for us, and I feel like we've achieved the goal and we've been able to produce something that's quite good. So back to the point is this has been the comment from the consumer, is wanting a hydraulic clutch.
That's interesting. I would have thought that from a maintenance side of things, it's easier for a guy to change a cable in and out than it is to bleed a hydraulic system. But if that's what the voice has predominantly been, I guess that's where you go and head down that path. And like you said, so yeah, interesting. But I find it interesting too. In just, this is probably off the side sort of comment, but that Eli Tomac's been a long-time star rider now for a few years, and obviously says very vocal about loving the cable clutch, but rumours are that he's not with Yamaha as such, and just interesting timing that the hydraulic is showing up, around that point where he's leaving. I just found that very curious, like interesting timing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment a whole lot on that, but I don't know, maybe we would have seen it a little bit earlier if we didn't have
someone was holding you back by the sounds of it. Yeah, that's my words, not yours. So yeah,
I think the biggest thing, like, for feel with clutch is, like, you have a really good feel of what the bike is doing with cable clutch and with starts and things like that. It's really good. The thing with riders, like, yes, the older generation of rider, yeah, we understand mechanically how the motorcycle works, and we can adjust the clutch. Like, we adjust the free play on the clutch when the clutch is starting to get hot. But it's coming into this next generation of riders where, in the younger generation, they've never experienced that. So when clutch starts to get a little bit tight, they don't understand it. And with hydraulic clutch, they can get on and ride it, and they don't have to think about adjusting anything.
It's consistent all the way through to the point that it just stops working, and that's probably what they want, because they don't want to notice any of that other stuff.
And durability on the track is it's positive, so you don't have to think about it. So it's one more thing the rider doesn't have to think about. They can jump on, ride, and less problems. Yeah,
and like you said too, they're probably growing up with this across different brands that are already running it. And it feels, from what I experienced on track the other week, it feels just as consistent as any of the other brands that are running it. And like you said, this is phase one for you guys. So obviously, well done at this point, having it as the first one that you're bringing out, really. So yeah, look, it's a step that I think has probably been needed to happen, like you said, to appease the masses. But just curious timing, let's say. So now, on other sides of this, there's lots of little tweaks that you guys have made in terms of the chassis and the engine mounts and stuff. Who determines what the target is for that feel that you're looking for? And obviously there's a group of you that are doing this testing, because it's not just Jay Wilson as the only Yamaha test rider out there, is it?
No, definitely not. I would say more at the later end. There's a lot smarter guys than me for sure, and guys that have had a lot of experience at this for such a long time. Like we're talking, I've only been involved with this for a very small amount of time compared to the guys that I work with. Even Josh Coppins, I learned so much from him in such, I guess, a small amount of time, but the knowledge that guy has is unbelievable. And it's just something that I continue to want to learn and be better at. And, Yamaha has a lot of very smart engineers and a lot of data and history of what works and what doesn't work. So it's about reviewing that. And, they do all the hard work of analyzing what, I guess, A, B, and C packages. And then by the end of it, okay, here's the direction we're going. What do you think? What's your comments? And then we go from there. And then it starts to get to the public, I guess.
So is there something about this 2026 model that you personally, love that they did in terms of the changes that they've made? And did you notice all these things to the extent that you thought you would when they told you that this was what's coming on the new model?
I think the biggest thing is rider comfort is a big improvement. We had quite a big change in our last model, and one of the complaints was the rigidity of the motorcycle. And I think front end feel has improved a lot. Cornering has improved a lot, but the rider comfort, not only from the frame, but from the motor as well. The feel, the longevity of riding, like durability of riding for the average rider. You can ride this bike for much longer and just not get tired from it, it was definitely a step that we needed to take, and rider comfort has been a big improvement. The balance of this bike has always been very positive, but I think they kept the balance but also increased the comfort of it, and that was something that was very positive for me.
Yeah, amazing what sort of 2 mil difference in front engine mounts can do in terms of that sort of thing, and a little tweak here, there, and across the chassis overall that makes these things like that. You've changed the angle of the steering just a tiny bit, and the wheelbase is a tiny bit shorter, and things make it a lot more comfortable, and continue that same pattern of stability that you mentioned has already been sort of a trademark there. So just curious that those things have improved, and you continue to tweak something in such a small manner can make such a big difference. So kudos to obviously the test riders being able to feel that, but the engineers to come up with that and design that in the first place as well. But I guess you've been probably off this to some degree, this model, for a while. I gather you would have been working on this. How far in advance are we talking? Like a year or two? When are you testing some of this stuff, and obviously then having to remember some of this stuff that you're back onto now that they've just released it into the public eye?
There's a lot of notes taken and a lot of reviewing old notes and things like that. They're continually working to be better, and they work well in advance. And for me, this is, like I said, I'm sort of the guy at the end that does the final reviews, and before it goes to production and before it gets raced. I'm the guy that sort of, we've hit the nail on the head and we're heading in the right direction. And this has been a positive change. The guys well in advance do a lot of the work, and then, like I said, I go and communicate with that globally with the race teams and hear what they have to say and where we can be better. So the guys have been on it for quite a long time, and they've done a lot of work, and they'll continue to innovate and develop the next lot of machinery. So, we're quite far in advance, I'd say.
Yeah, so are we roughly like a year, two? Where are we roughly there?
You never know. We never really know how far we're in advance. From my point of view, I don't work that far in advance. I'm a couple of years ahead, but the other guys always, it looks like the same bike, but it could be something completely different.
That's the trick, isn't it? They can obviously put like, plastics and stuff on a bike, but what's inside and what's around it and tweak tiny bits here, there and everywhere that actually, it's not anything. It's like a 2030 or something, it's you wouldn't be able to pick it out unless you know exactly what they've done to it with a list as such. So yeah, that's kind of the cool part of the testing that you probably get to see a little bit of in the background there as well. But I guess with the testing too, like what does a normal, and like we just said at the start of this, you were in Europe only a few days ago, you're back in Japan doing things now, but you've got racing and stuff. But what would a normal testing week look like for you? Is there multiple days on the bike? Is there only one or two? And then there's a lot of review and like I said, paperwork in terms of confirming what you felt at different points that you got to fill in, or what does the week look like when you're testing these things out?
Yeah, so I guess there's different roles, like with production, there's guys that are just purely doing production testing, and they're based on, say, this 450 model, and then there's a production team that's engine, there's a production team that's body, and so like that there's different sort of teams that are continually working, and some guys are 4 days a week on the bike, and some guys are 3 or just contractors that come in and do reviews and give information and feedback. But the test track is a very busy place, I tell you that. For me, most of the time I'm doing a lot of, like I said, I've got a lot of different sort of roles, but in a busy time of the year, I could be doing 3 days of testing a week. And that's not just purely production. That could be race stuff, suspension, that could be other stuff we're working with KYB to provide to the US or to Europe or things like that. So my role sort of changes a little bit, and it depends. Like mine's not a lot of always production. It could be a lot of race stuff as well, and future production or like R&D stuff, so research and development. So I'm always getting different sort of that's the exciting thing, I guess, about mine. It's never boring. I've always got something new going on. I'm not just doing purely body or purely suspension or just a 250 or just a 450. It's always something going on, and I'm always sort of working with the younger riders. Even with the younger riders, I'll jump on their 250 to make sure, hey, you guys you're doing a good job and we're heading in the right direction. I think this package that you guys have like come up with on your own, say like working with the engineers, you're in a pretty good spot. You got a pretty good window here, and I think you've done a good job. So it's sort of like confirmation for the younger riders as well. And I'm trying to educate those guys for the future of Yamaha as well, that are at a higher level for testing. And I guess that's been sort of a challenge, I guess, over the last few years, is the Japanese level in racing has dropped off. And a part of that for me being here is to try and increase the level and increase the riders' ability and skill, so that for testing in the future, we still have a higher level and they can employ Japanese riders to do this job.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Obviously, they don't want to have to bring in too many people all the time to make the bike, the top level. They want to have that homegrown talent. So yeah, that's a good point you make there about having to help develop them as well. But it sounds like it'd be a pretty exciting job generally week to week, because it doesn't sound like you know exactly what's going on each time you get to the track and what's going to be on the test menu for the day as such. So, but I do have one question on that side of things too. You mentioned about having sort of groups that working on different things at different times. Is there just a guy there that's designed to go out and ride as many laps as he can and break something to test the durability? Or how does that side of things work? Like, is there just one bullhead just going as hard as he can, fanging the daylights out of the clutch, trying to make things break? Or what's happening there on durability?
So, like, we do durability tests before bikes are released and stuff like that. And a lot of the time that'll be like the younger race riders will come in and say they're there for their under contract, so then they'll do something for 2 weeks, and they've got to ride 4 days that week, and they've got to come in and they've got to do 3 30-minute motos, and there could be 4 of those guys there for the day. So they just basically go out, do their moto, and whether it's raining, whether it's completely dry, bulled up, no matter the condition, they'll move around to certain tracks, and then they'll do their moto, come back in. The mechanic will put some chain lube on and fill it up, do a quick look over to make sure everything looks okay, and then
next guy gets on.
Next rider.
Yeah,
yep.
cool.
So it's rotation, and that'll happen for 2 weeks, and 3-4 riders will just be banging out 20-30 minute motos and just riding. And you have all different skills of rider. You have the race rider, which is going to, go quite hard, and he's in the middle of race season, so he's pushing quite hard and riding, and he has his habits that maybe he's too heavy on the rear brake or too heavy on the clutch, opening throttle really aggressive. And then you have the next guy that's maybe not as high of a level, and he's not a race rider, but he's had a long history with Yamaha, and he's just the average rider that's, okay, I'm going to jump on this and do my moto, and maybe he drags the rear brake the whole lap, so like you're getting a bunch of like skills, like a whole group of different skills of riders and abilities, and that's really about what we're trying to work out is where is this weakest point of this bike, and where can we be better, so before it's released to the public.
Yeah, wow. The more you hear about these things that they're going on in the background to make these things come out to the public as good as they are, it does impress you to think that this is all being covered, by probably a small group of people to try and make this happen. It's an impressive thing that Yamaha is going through, and obviously it shows in the bike that's available now, and it's won so many different reviews and shootouts and stuff. It's a good package to start from, really. So yeah, impressive efforts there.
Yeah, and going on that, it's not just in Japan. Like there's a team in Europe, and there's a team in the US, and then even with guys in Australia, working with AJ Roberts and Josh Coppins, and there's guys that are globally working a part of these programs. So it's not just coming from a Japan base. There's a lot of feedback and information coming from all over the world.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just to sort of tie this up at the end, and obviously we're talking testing and all the different things that you can go through here, and I'll give you the easy out on this one. I was going to ask what's the coolest thing that you've tested, because you probably can't tell us that one, but I know you've spoken about the power steering aspect on the bikes in the past. Was that something that you walked out to the bike one day and went, WTF, am I really going to get on something that's got power steering?
Mate, I was very fortunate, I guess, in the timing of when I come here. You see, there's not a lot of foreigners here in Japan, and I think that it was just, I put the right things out there in the world, I guess, and the timing it worked out well for me. The EPS project was like my starting point here in Japan, working with electronic power steering, and so that's what sort of brought me here. And mate, the things that I experienced and learned from that project was unreal. And I really got thrown in the deep end with that, in the sense of like, I went from a guy that was racing in Australia, and I did some racing in the US and Europe and in New Zealand, and then we went into COVID, and then it was like, hey, we want you to come to Japan, and we want you to race with this electronic power steering and be the test rider for it. So it was like I went from just racing, and then, okay, hang on, now I've got to be testing in racing conditions. So I learned so much from that, and that was one of the coolest projects to be a part of, because it was something so, like you talk to somebody, it's so bizarre. Like, what, we're putting a power steering on a motorcycle, on a two-wheel motor, but we don't drive a car without power steering, so we don't even think about hopping in a car now that doesn't have power steering. So it was such a cool project to be a part of, and EPS, like, I believe it had some really, really positive things about it, and some things that maybe weren't the best for maybe the top race rider, but for the consumer, I think it can be something that's positive in the future. Just the safety aspect and the stability of it, the front wheel traction. And I've always been somebody that has always commented a lot on how can we make this bike and this sport safer. And I think that is something that could possibly make this sport safer. So EPS, I say, would be one of the most craziest projects to be a part of, just from like the public comment. But after I wrote it, I was like, wow, this is just, it's not. So, EPS, working on that project was one of the probably craziest projects that I've been a part of in many positive ways.
Yeah, definitely. I still reckon it's probably part of you that when they offered you that first bit that you went, oh, they're probably just thinking I'm the craziest one to come and come and do this, and nobody else has said yes to it. But yeah, like you said, you've then learnt heaps from that project and probably gained a very different perspective very quickly about what could be possible with motorcycle and design and development. So yeah, it would have been a cool thing to be the one doing, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a very special project to be a part of, and we even actually, like I've worked on some other projects with that EPS, and it's like we put it on a mountain bike. I think I have a video a while ago of a project that we worked on, and we had it on a mountain bike. And mate, it was unreal.
Yeah,
what a cool product. So. Yeah.
Just quickly touching on that, do you just, like you mentioned the mountain bike side of things there, but do you do many other areas, or is it just the motocross testing? Like, do you get drawn into like WR ranges or anything like that, or is it just motocross for you?
I mean, pretty much like YZ has been my area. I did do a little bit with our YPJ Yamaha mountain bike, just because my level on a mountain bike is, I would say, pretty high, and we have quite a cool mountain bike park not far from our area. So working at Million Pedal Park, which is like where Yamaha is sort of home. It's up in the mountains behind Yamaha, of Iwata. So yeah, I worked on some of the mountain bike stuff, and I've done some like promotion things with the mountain bike that was really cool. So yeah, mainly YZ at the moment, and who knows, in the future maybe we head into a different direction, but as of right now it's more the off-road YZ area.
Yeah, nice. So what's next for the schedule in terms of Jay Wilson over the next few weeks, months here as the year winds down? What's on the calendar?
Yeah, so we've just got back from Europe. Normally I try to get out of Japan, as I mentioned, during the summer. So we've just summer training, I guess, and summer testing. Normally I'm in America at this time of the year, but we had the opportunity to go to Europe and do some stuff, and that was really cool. So we're back here in Japan now, and we've got 3 rounds of the Japanese Championship left. To be honest, mate, I've went a little bit blank on what's left on the year. I know there's a lot going on, but yeah, it's just racing at the moment. We've got 3 rounds, so I'm kind of just focusing on that. As I mentioned, like towards the first half, the end of the first half of our season, I actually had quite a big crash and hurt my knee. I tore my MCL, so I was recovering from that, and then we're just back on the bike now, back in the gym, and just trying to prepare for this second half of the season. Hopefully we can take home our 4th Japanese championship. That would be really the goal right now. Mm-hmm. And as well work with our younger riders to take home, first and second in the championship in the 250 class. So to take over the 250 and 450 class take that home for Yamaha, that would be the ideal goal right now and the focus for the rest of the season at the moment.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, plenty of things still to come for 2025. And look, thank you, Jay, for your time here and having a little chat to us about the model and testing that goes on with Yamaha as part of this YZ450 2026 launch. Obviously, people out there will probably hear this and get a different perspective on what's going on the bike that they've decided to purchase. And I guess if they don't like it, don't find Jay on Instagram. But hopefully it's all positive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always tend to get on a bit of a tangent and get away from what we're always talking about. But, I think we've done a great job, and Yamaha, everyone involved in Yamaha has done a great job with this new model. And I think I'm looking forward to the public's, to hear the feedback from the public. But I think the comfort and overall package has been a very positive improvement. The power delivery and the rideability of this machine, I think, is very positive, and I look forward to hearing what people have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to hear too many negative things after my time, the short time I got on it at the launch the other day at Appen. yeah, I don't think you're going to hear too many negatives. It's only positive from what I got to experience. And I didn't even touch on the Power Tuner app with you, but like that thing was crazy. My first real dive into it was that last day there, and just the adjustability and the things you could do with it to make it suit you was insane. So yeah, look, whoever's doing that side of things is fantastic as well. But look, Jay, thank you for your time on the Always Moto podcast. We'll let you get back to the testing schedule. Hopefully we see you again soon, and in Australia, hopefully maybe, and look forward to whatever else you're getting to put together with Yamaha here and make these bikes even better.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on, and take it easy. And I hope everyone's having a good time back in Australia, and I look forward to hearing the reviews.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jay.
Cheers, mate.
Hey guys, Reed Taylor. You're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, so we've got Aaron Tanti here. We're at the Yamaha 450 launch for 2026 model. Mate, Aaron, we were talking before. You probably don't touch much on a stock bike very often, but you're out there spinning some laps today. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, we often don't get to ride a standard bike all that often. The only time I really do is when these launches come about, and I do enjoy doing them because it is really cool to see the platform that, we build off, that we race, and how good the standard bike actually is,
Eye-opening at times.
It is, honestly. Like, obviously I've done a lot of launches in my career, and they're just getting so much better, like out the box. Like, I was pretty impressed today. I did a lot of laps, and the track had ruts, jumps, all of it, and yeah, I was really impressed with the the whole power, the suspension, but like the standard suspension, coming with the Dunlop tires and stuff like that. It really is a good bike straight out the clutch, straight out the box.
It does have a clutch, so that's, and speaking of that, it's a hydraulic too, so that's different. Like, did you guys have that as a bolt-on from GYTR this year, or what were you doing that side of things?
Yeah, so when they first changed the model, I didn't run the bolt-on because I don't think it came to Australia for a little while. But this year I did ride in the bolt-on, which, I mean, I didn't ride for that long.
We had 2 rounds. You did do something.
Yeah, I did do them last couple of rounds of motocross on it, and I do enjoy the hydraulic clutch. I'm like really happy they have moved into that direction, and they've obviously taken their time because Yamaha like to get things pretty right the first go. So obviously they've fixed their few little issues that they had, making this clutch work a lot cooler. They've got the genuine hydraulic clutch. It's got a big reservoir, so it can have nice cool oil going through it all the time, and it is genuinely a really good feeling clutch. Like, I'm enjoying it. I've been riding Supercross the last week or 2 on it, so I'm looking forward to racing it this year.
Do you think you'll have much noticeable difference during a race as it heats up, like from that hydraulic to the cable? Because I know you would be able to get the spinner and change that take-up point a little bit with the cable, but did you do that much anyway?
No, so that was like, I did enjoy the cable clutch, but I wasn't much of a spinner.
Okay.
So when I was racing, I didn't really touch it,
Yeah.
and obviously the heavier the soil, like if it was a mud race, you got your clutch is fading, and you get that free play in it. It's a little bit annoying, so it's cool to,
This won't have that.
Yeah, this won't have that, and I enjoy that. Some people might like cable clutch, but I really do think hydraulic is the way to go.
So you guys are on the 26s for Supercross. You've just started with these. You're basically a couple of days into testing. How's it going on that side of things? And where do you start for a Supercross testing point? You would have the suspension, I gather, from last year to put into it and go from that spec. But what else do you start with?
So obviously these 26 models are kind of just an improvement on the the last year or 2 models. So a lot of the changes are just positive in the feeling in the front end and the chassis, and obviously the hydraulic clutch. So for the team, they have built a new engine package. So for me, it was them coming up with the new bike. They started me on the standard bike, obviously with Supercross suspension because I'm riding a Supercross track.
Safer that way.
Safer that way. And so I got to ride the standard one first on the Supercross track, and then they bolt in the new engine package that they got for me. We obviously try a few things. A lot of starts off the mesh for us over the last couple of days because that's super important to make sure that clutch is biting. We try different combinations that the team comes up with, and obviously our sponsors and stuff like that.
Yeah, nice. So you're well and truly into it. We got what is it, like 60 odd, 70 odd days or something until Supercross starts. So actually, no, it's probably a bit less than that.
Yeah, it's about 6 weeks from now.
Yeah,
6.5 weeks.
So how's the preparation looking like? Was those 2 races good for you to be out and part? Obviously, everyone says gate drops are good to have, but did it actually help you in that sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I had literally 6 months off the bike from January to about 4 weeks before Toowoomba. So it was a real quick turnaround for me, and the only way I was racing is if I felt comfortable enough in myself to go out there and race. I really did want to do it for the gate drops, because otherwise, you know, my first gate drop was going to be at round 1 of Supercross in, you know, whenever it is in September, October or whatever. And that's a very long time to not do a gate drop. And
you might find you at a club round or something just to make sure I got one.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a discussion if I didn't do the last 2, just to you know, be around some racing, because you can't replicate that. It's hard at the practice track, even if you are, you know, riding with your buddies and stuff that you train with. There's nothing like the gate drop with, you know, 30 plus guys going into the first corner. Intense battles, feeling roost again.
Getting that callus built up on the chest.
Yeah, pretty much, just feeling that you know, good pain. And yeah, they were really beneficial for me, and I'm glad I did them. And it just kind of got my ball rolling, you know, my confidence, you know, my speed. Like, I got better just over the 1 week. You know, QMP was awesome for me. And now it just feels like I'm just normal and just getting back into the grind, ready to go for Supercross.
So the 5 rounds that are coming up, 2 at Redcliffe, the Cronulla round, the Melbourne round, and Adelaide. Do you like the look of the series this year, as they've made a few more tweaks and obviously changed the Sydney round around a bit in terms of location? Do you like what it's looking like?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm actually pretty stoked they changed the Sydney round, because
you didn't like it?
Personally, I've raced in that little stadium a fair few times, and it is, I mean, it's good for the fans, but it is quite a small track for us. And you know, I do enjoy going to a bit more of a full-size Supercross track. It's obviously, you know, a little bit more of my strength, because I'm a decent Supercross rider. And yeah, so I am pretty happy with how the series is looking, and you know, we get to go smooth sailing into it.
Yeah. Any news on what's happening with your teammate yet? You don't have one yet as for Supercross, because Jed's out injured.
Yeah, look, I know Dack has been searching whether he gets an international or not. I'm not sure. Obviously, you know, sponsor commitments, we do need to have a second guy, so there will be a second guy there. I really don't know who it is yet.
You don't need to worry. You've got your ride and you're fine.
At the end of the day, I'm just one of the riders, and I do my job. It don't really matter to me if I have a teammate out there or not, because obviously I want to win.
Yeah, no, definitely. Of course, you don't matter who's there. You just want to be the number one itself. So, and look, good news just come out last night when we did the introduction part, the presentation of the Yamaha. Signed yourself a new 2-year deal with CDR. So that's got to be a nice little just relaxing moment sort of thing. I've got my security ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you said, it's always nice to, especially this is my first 2-year deal, and I'm super stoked to be staying with these guys. I've already done, you know, this would have been my 3rd year with them now, over the past couple of years, and to be able to be with the guys and the team that I've worked so closely with, won my championship with, it definitely feels good to lock in, and you know, I can just put my head down now. I don't need to stress. I just need to do my job.
Just be the best you can be. So yeah, well, look, appreciate some time. Glad to see it. Good to see you out there on the bike, and you like it. And yeah, looking forward to see what you can do in 2025 Supercross.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi guys, it's Brad West, and you're listening to the AlwaysMoto podcast.
All right, we're here with the CDR Yamaha man himself, Craig Dack. We're at the Yamaha launch for the 2026 450. Does that mean much to you guys when you get a new model? Because for the race side of things, you change a lot of the parts and stuff, but it obviously means something to start from a nice base point, and they've made some changes to this model to, you know, chassis and all that sort of stuff. So does it mean a lot to you to be a part of that and then have that bike be good to start with?
You know, I think however long you've been in motorcycles, whether it's 1 year or 40 odd years like me, you still always get excited when you open the crate and you see the new bike, right?
You can't help yourself, can you?
No. Unfortunately, these days we get a lot of information.
You would be privy to it way in advance.
Yeah, so it's not such a big surprise, but we're still enjoying the challenge. The thing I have noticed over all the 30 odd years I've run the race team is this platform that we've got this is the 4th generation or 3rd generation of that. This is when they iron out all those preliminary problems they had with the previous couple of models, which we had some problems with the clutches, mainly at the top level, and some turning, things that could have been better. So a lot of those things have been addressed. So this is usually the good model. So this is the one that's made all the improvements from the previous 2 or 3. But then we just go through our normal process. We go to the dyno. We look at the PIG, which is a product information guide, and other stats that we get from Japan. And we look at the bike and we plan a direction. We go to the dyno, do some stuff with fuels, ignition, porting, compression, and all that. Get a bunch of stuff to go out then and try on the track, because what works on the dyno doesn't always work on the track. So we have to go and do that with the rider. So we've already spent probably, I think, 5 days track testing with Aaron Tanti, getting ready for Supercross, and it's all positive. Everything's good. He feels more positive with the direction of steering, which the bike's a little bit shorter but with a little bit more rake.
And that'd be good in Supercross because there's tighter confinements there. So is this going to then translate later when you find out in a couple of months to start doing motocross testing too?
Supercross is tricky because you do want a bike that turns really well, but you need a bike that feels long and stable for the whoops. So you always
Catch-22, yeah.
Correct. You always got that. You're always trying to chase that balance or that compromise. But so far, Aaron seems like he's happy with that. So far so good. The bike is good. It's nothing unfamiliar with it. There's nothing that's doing wrong. Yamaha has jumped ahead faster than the other manufacturers because they're getting ready.
Wind's picking up here.
We're getting ready for the 2027 noise to come down to 109 here in Australia. Next year it'll still be 112, but they've made this bike compatible with that. So
we'll just creep over here behind the truck and try and get out of that so we don't get smashed. But yeah, you're touching on the sound side of things, and yeah, they've already made that jump down, so that's an improvement straight up.
Well, it's an improvement to the noise, but we don't necessarily need it here in Australia next year. So to all the punters over there that get one of these bikes, there's a lot of modifications to be made quite easily and quickly with the airbox to get a fair bit more horsepower out of it for at least next year anyway, when now decibel reading is still 112.
Still got some wiggle room on it. So
Correct.
So you touched on the Supercross side of things there with the testing with Aaron, and last night we sort of found out that both Jed and Aaron are now both on 2 new 2-year deals with the team. So that's really cool for them and positive for you. You've got something locked in advance, which is great. But obviously Jed's out injured at the moment, and Supercross is coming up. What are we doing there for the second bike for the team?
Yeah, well, firstly, it is good to have Jed, and I had Jed signed up about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Because at the moment in Australia, if you haven't got Jed or Webster, you're sort of not in the game. So we had to make sure we locked him away.
Very clear cut, aren't they? Those two are very much above the rest at the moment.
So we had to lock him away quickly, and which we did for the next 2 years. And we just finalised Aaron yesterday. So we're really, if you put out on paper what Australian riders we'd want to get, they're the 2 that you'd want to get. So we're really happy, and to lock him in for 2 years. Nice, stable, solid team for 2 years. Supercross is a basket case at the moment.
I'm glad you said that.
Thanks for asking. Meaning, I don't know, that's not true, because Aaron is a very competent Supercross rider. He's healed up now from his neck injury. He's not, I wouldn't say he's 100% yet, but he's not far off it. So we'll just focus on him now and get his head down and try and get him in the best position for Supercross. And we're trying our asses off to try and find that second guy. We've been talking to a couple of Americans. And problem like we spoke to off microphone is, World Supercross, that level of rider that we need, that 10th, 12th, 13th place in the US, or, Savachi, Dean Wilson, that level of rider, a lot of those guys have gone to sign for World Supercross, so they're not in the marketplace. So we're really struggling to find a guy to replace Aaron. There are some local Australian guys, and without too much disrespect for them, but if Honda's bringing out that next level rider like your Dean Wilsons, we have to react to that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You've got Aaron who can probably run with him, but yeah, they've got Dean Wilson as a big draw card from a publicity standpoint and reason to come check him out at the truck. So yeah, you need to have someone of that level too, don't you?
That mindset's obvious, but then trying to find that is the difficult part.
Yeah. And what are we down to now? We're only about 6 weeks or something, so this is getting a bit tight on time for you.
Yeah, and one rider we're talking to, which I won't mention names, it's been publicised a bit, but we went around in circles with him for about 2 months.
That's disappointing. That's wasting time out there, isn't it?
Very disappointing what went down with it. However, that's the job that we do, and it doesn't always go well. So we lost 2 months there when we thought we had a deal across the line, but you know what they say about assumption.
Yeah, we all know that saying. Yes. So I guess where to? Like, how late does this go before you go shit? We're out.
We'll just keep plugging away. I got a phone call to make in the morning to another US rider. I got one US rider that's kind of agreed, but it's just a couple of things we need to work out. But every day it gets closer. You just got to keep chipping away.
Yep.
It's not ideal because, yes, we should be in full preparation mode now, not still trying to negotiate contracts.
Yeah.
However, it is what it is. And by round 1 in Brisbane at wherever it is, up in Queen,
Redcliffe. Yep.
people will see, and hopefully sooner rather than later we can announce that anyway.
Yeah, well, look, hopefully we see that, and hopefully it all gets locked in and it can smooth out for you and you can have your rider. But appreciate having us out here for this day and making Jed's bike available to everybody too. That was a cool experience for the media guys. Had a good go on it, and it's surprising. It's not as beastly as you kind of think in your mind that a factory bike would be. So no, it was really cool, and talking to Jed about it, it's just nice to have that access for you guys to be a part of these media launches and just make it a bit more realistic for us all. Yeah,
and to be honest, we really like doing it. If you can notice all the staff at CDR, they always do it with a smile on their face. We get a kick out of it too. We don't get to see you guys through. We read what you do, we see what you do, but we never get to see each other. And having a dinner last night and hanging out, and today I was talking to Sean Goldhawk from Yamaha, and I said it is a genuinely good thing and nice thing to do.
It's a relaxed atmosphere, but no, we appreciate it, and we'll hopefully see you at Supercross with two riders.
Right on, come and say hello.
I will do. Thanks, buddy. Thanks, Craig.
I'm Caleb Gourlay, and you're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, we've got Jed Beaton here from CDR Yamaha. Mate, obviously sitting out here at the moment watching the 26 bikes get all ridden around. You're probably a bit jealous of what's happening because you still got the one crutch here, the injury at the end of the motocross season. Unfortunately, you're just not able to do much at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, but all in all, it's good to be out here and just out of the house, really. I've been stuck in the house for the last 5 weeks, and I mean, I at least feel good enough to be out here and hanging out with everyone and having a laugh again. It's definitely good. All the team are here, and I haven't seen those guys since my injury. So, it's just good to catch up with everyone again. Unfortunately, I'm not riding. The new bike looks really cool, so a bit jealous watching everyone else ride and not getting to put my 2 cents in. But it's not often that we would get to ride a stock bike. Obviously, with the race team, we always change all the stuff. So, it would have been cool to see what it's like and do that before we do all our testing and getting ready for the next season. So, all in all, I think everything's going well. I get to go and see the doctor again Tuesday. So I should know a lot more what's going on Tuesday, as in like a timeline when I'll be back, what's going on, and everything like that.
Do you have any sort of in your head idea of when you want to be back doing it? If you got to choose when it was, when would it be, other than right now?
Just whenever I'm ready to get back on. Like if I'm feeling good in 5 weeks, I'll get a bike and get back on it. But I'll wait for the doctor to make that call and tell me when it's safe and possible to ride again. When I get the green light, I'll just jump straight back on.
Probably a good thing with the way the season works is that there is only a short window of Supercross, and if you do have that injury, well, you kind of it's gone, right? And it doesn't matter. There's a bit of a gap then, at least until motocross starts in the way our Australian side of things work. So for you, it's probably going to fall in nicely in that side of things.
Yeah, my aim is obviously to just be back and ready to go for motocross next year. I think I should be back on a bike before Supercross finishes, but obviously there's no real point probably to go and race 1 or 2 races of Supercross. I'd rather get full preparation and do it properly than just go and do 2 races because I feel like it, and then we'll just put focus on next year and go out and get what I didn't get this year.
Yeah, that's got to be the disappointing part in all this. You were so close to sort of grabbing that title and basically you had it locked up as much as you could at that point with 30-point lead. I think they said last night that's where you sort of finished up. That's got to suck, that part, really.
Yeah, it's obviously disappointing, but like with anything, nothing's ever over until it's actually over. So it's our sport. It's what we do. Just got to take it like that. It's unfortunate, but in the end of the day, it's part of what we actually do. It's the risks we take, and it's not the best thing, but in the end of the day, it doesn't define me as a person. Being a champion this year, it doesn't change my life in 10 years' time, but obviously you want to do everything you can to win, and it feels like at that time, everything's just gone to shit and it's the worst thing in the world, but you get past it a few days and think anything could have been a lot worse. And yeah, in the end of the day, it's not the end of the world, but a couple of days before that, you think the world's ending. But
That moment laying on the ground, like we've all been injured at that point, but for you probably more so knowing what you were just about to achieve it is a letdown. But yeah, like you said, the more time you get past that point, it all sort of blends into the background, doesn't it?
yeah, it has to. I think you can't hang on to something like that for a long time. It's just driving yourself back into the ground, really. And like I said, I'm focused now on a full recovery and hopefully recovering as quick as I can and just trying to enjoy this time off. I'll probably go to a few of the Supercrosses now and watch and just hang out with the team and help where I can, just to be around and show my face. And yeah, we'll see. And main goal is to just be back strong for next year and be ready to go.
Well, good news too on the positive side of this. Let's get away from the negatives of what happened with the injury and stuff. But 2-year deal re-signed recently for you with the team with CDR, so that's got to be nice to have that wrapped in the bag already. You got 2 years, you know what's going to happen, you know the bike, and obviously there's changes that are happening over here talking about for the 26 models. But yeah, that's got to just be a nice feeling.
Yeah, always nice. With our sport, it's just nice to sign a multi-year deal. Yeah. Going from 1 year to the next and just getting a 1 year contract all the time, it's a little bit stressful because always at the end of the season, obviously if you're going well, it's fine, but if you're not going well and not living up to your expectations and everything like that, it makes it a difficult talk at the end of the year. And I mean, it's just good to have the confidence. Like, I really enjoy the bike. I love the Yamaha, love the team. So it'd be silly if I left anyway. But in the end of the day, everyone gets along really well. Unreal. So yeah, I'm super excited for the next 2 years. And to be really honest, I think it's going to be longer than that in the future. So yeah, I think looking forward to it and just trying to achieve as much as possible in the next, I'd say 5 to 6 years, and then see where it ends up.
At that point, I'm not sure how old you're going to get to at that point, but so no plans of going and doing any overseas stuff in that time, or maybe one here or there if the Yamaha guys can link it up somehow, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I'm keen. I was going to go and do the last 3 rounds of outdoors in America at the end of this season if I didn't break my femur. Yep. Hopefully next year it's possible to do the same. Yep. It just depends on what dates everything
That's
is.
the thing, isn't it? The calendars, do they line up or not really for us?
So this year it just lined up perfectly that we finished our season like the week before their last 3 rounds, so you could just head over and get straight into it. But if the same opportunity's there next year, I'll definitely try go. I think the level that we are riding at the moment is competitive with that sort of level. Like, I wouldn't say we go over there and fucking win races or anything like that, but I definitely think we can be competitive.
Well, Kyle just went over and was like plan you were probably going to do, and he was getting 6th, 8th in Moto, so that's really competitive.
Yeah, for sure, and it's being competitive, and then it's also exposing you to something different. Obviously, racing in Australia for the last couple of years, I haven't really been exposed to that again, so I think I would just like to go and do that, but not live full time there or not do anything. Just go
short space.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty happy. I'm extremely happy where I am. So, and I think with our equipment and our bike and stuff, it can be competitive on a world class level. So. Yeah, I'd like to go and do it just because of that.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm going to bring this back around. You said something earlier in this podcast about you don't really get to ride the standard bikes. Yep. And that, you know, as much as we're here at the 26, you probably won't really get to do it. And I was talking to Aaron earlier, and he said the same thing. You guys have gone to it or Aaron has, for the Supercross already, but basically straight away the standard suspension is off. You've got a pipe on it because it's a sponsor deal. You guys don't spend much time on a stock bike ever really anymore, do you?
Not really. I think if it's a new model like this, we'll probably do a few days on it just to pick out what we like and don't like about the bike. So then when we start going testing, it's just we kind of know what we want to chase. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this model's had a few changes, so it would be beneficial to ride it standard for the first couple of rides and then just change it from there on and make a step every time in the direction that you feel like you want to improve it. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think when I come back, I'll most likely just ride a standard bike, to be fair.
I was going to say, this might be the chance for you to do that.
Yeah, I think so. And then I'll obviously be wanting to just ride a flat paddock or motocross to start off with anyway. So standard suspension and that is also not going to be any effect to me at that point. And I'll just put my bars and my sort of setup that I enjoy on it straight away, and I'll probably do a couple hours on that, and then obviously when we start doing some testing before the next year, at least you know what sort of way you want to go and how it all works.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we're getting a chance to ride your actual race bike here today. Question for you on that side of things. One, it's probably disappointing seeing people go out on your bike. But two, what do you like in the bike and that you do to it to, you know, from a different, like an engine point of view compared to, say, standard? Is there something on, like, the tuner app that you know that you do straight away? Or what do you like in the bike?
I feel like this bike's built for my style. I like to ride in third gear a lot and really use the power.
Yep.
I think the engine package we've got on it really allows me to do that. And I just think it's a strong all-round bike from bottom to top. And if you're in second, third gear, fourth gear, it will pull exactly how I sort of like to ride. And yeah, it's just what happens with bikes when you've done a few seasons of testing and really fine-tuning it to how you like it. Suspension wires and stuff like that, we've just done a lot of testing and set it up to how I want it to be. And yeah, I hope everyone that gets to ride it enjoys it. But yeah, it's obviously a full race bike, so suspension's probably hard, and there's a lot of things that you probably won't like, but at the same time, I think there'd be things that you would enjoy on it. So yeah, it'd be cool to see what the riders say when they come back after riding it.
Well, once this is done, I'm going to get my chance to have a go on it later, and I'll add to the end of this and put my thoughts on what you've just compared to what you just said. So we'll see if it's the first comment I heard from someone was, "Man, that was stiff," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, you go a lot faster than most of us, so that's probably the case." But yeah, I'll add my thoughts in there at the end. But look, hopefully the recovery side of things keeps continuing to go well. Hopefully you do get back on the bike, you know, in a couple of weeks around that end of Supercross point, and you can try and go after that title you missed out on this year.
Yeah, we'll be back with a bit more motivation next year, and yeah, it's just tough pill to swallow, but looking forward to getting back and just honestly being back on the bike and back at the races.
Sounds good. Appreciate your time, Jed. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
That's awesome.
Hey guys, Dylan Wood here, and you're listening to the Always Moto podcast.
All right, guys and girls, we are back after those couple of interviews. It's awesome to get as much content as we have from this particular introduction, having the CDR Yamaha team available on the day. One, obviously having Tanti riding was cool. Having him go past us on track, maybe not so cool, but obviously shows you which one's the fast line and whatnot. But it's awesome to have him there. Obviously, Jed being injured with that femur fracture. He was just cruising around on chairs, between chairs basically all day. So you could sort of tie him down and get some more, you know, interviews done, which was awesome. He had plenty of time for everybody. And then Craig Dack as well. Very open and honest in those interviews about, you know, what they're doing Supercross wise, bike wise. He didn't give away everything, but you can sort of read between the lines of where he was going with some of that stuff. And yeah, if you know about that particular rider that he was mentioning, you know, we all probably know who it is. But yeah, look, bit of an interesting situation there. Craig's obviously, he's made a couple of comments now, particularly in that interview there about, you know, bringing in the US riders because the Honda guys are. He made the same sort of comments and had the same sort of sentiment towards this in the press conference at the Australian Open, AusX Open last year when, you know, Dean Wilson was there, Joey Savacci was there, and they had obviously had Cooper Webb fly in for the one-off round as part of that connection that CDR has with Star Yamaha in the US. So he's obviously been trying to level up and trying to win these titles, be the number one team in Australia. And they almost got there with Jed Beaton, just injuries sort of stuffed that one up there at the end for the motocross titles. But he's obviously curious and wanting to get back into that challenging point for the Australian title. As much as, you know, Aaron Tanti, Jed Beaton can compete with these guys, trying to outdo them over the 5 rounds and, you know, potentially outdo them in, you know, decent whoop section if that's happening there. not always easy to do from these American stars that are, just grown up with it and have way more access to it and obviously way more exposure to it at racing level. So he's trying to bring more people in, which is good and bad. And I think that it'd be a case that they might have even had 3 bikes under the 10 if for Supercross only, if Jed was healthy. But yeah, things are working out that they'll have 2, but they haven't announced anything as yet. Even by the time I'm recording this, a couple of days later after that, they haven't got any more announcements that have come through. They obviously put out the announcement as I'm recording this today about Aaron Tanti's bit. Jed Beaton's been re-signed a couple of months earlier. So both those guys have got 2-year deals, so 26 and 27 with CDR Yamaha, so they're locked in. I dare say you're going to see those 2 guys being very competitive in the outdoors and Supercross for the Australian side of things coming up for these next 2 years, challenging Kyle Webster and that Honda team, which will be cool to see. But yeah, interested to see who they get there for that Supercross seat. Now, of course, you're hanging around here because I teased the fact that we got to ride Jed Beaton's bike at the start of this podcast, and I just teased it at the end of that interview there with Jed Beaton as well. Ask him about what he liked in his bike, and he liked the fact that it's luggable, 3rd gear riding, strong throughout. The suspension's really good. And we got to ride it. Now, this is a very cool opportunity for anyone in the media to get to ride a team race bike. It doesn't happen all the time. It's not like, oh yeah, come over here, we'll get the bike set up. It's not that easy. Obviously, the circumstances around this one was probably a bit of perfect timing in terms of, 1, they had the YZ450 2026 launch. 2, they just finished the motocross season and the bike was on the truck. 3, Jed Beaton was injured and wasn't using it, and essentially they were moving. That bike is basically about to be broken down and re-put back to stock and sold on. And 4, that they've switched to the 2026 models that they were available already. And they've switched to those 26 models for Supercross. So this bike was essentially sitting there waiting, ready to do absolutely nothing. And they saw the opportunity to create some more content and give us media hacks some laps on a CDR Yamaha, which, look, I'm not a Yamaha fanatic, but I am an Australian motocross, Supercross fanatic from the moment I first saw Supercross in Parramatta Speedway back in the early 90s, and I'm talking like Miller Yamaha and that side of things with CDR. So the fact that CDR has been the team from my childhood all the way through as the factory team in Australia, for them to turn around and say, do you want to ride one of our bikes? I was like, hell yes, get me on that thing. I will not pass this up. I will be here till midnight if you still will be here to let me on that bike. I will line up. I'll do whatever I have to get myself on this damn thing because I'm not missing this opportunity. And oh my God, I'm glad I went for it. It was, 1, it's a tick box moment. 1, I've wanted to ride a race bike for a little while as part of some media content and just trying to develop more relationships. But 2, just to ride that race bike, the one that was leading the points, potentially going to win the championship, the CDR bike, yeah, I would say dream come true, but it's close to. For a young Aussie kid, that's basically the one of, if not the best teams and bikes in our pits to get a chance to throw a leg over it, and no restrictions as such. It had the spec tires on it. It had the full KYB factory suspension as Jed Beaton was running it. All of the gizmos, the pro circuit pipes, all of that stuff. It was as Jed had last ridden it, ready to go. So we obviously keep Jed's comments in mind here. I'm going to run through what I felt. Now, having been on the 2026 model, the stock version, it did have the MX34, the brand new Dunlop MX34 tire on it. It's not what comes standard on that 26 model, which is why I didn't talk about it in that early part of this podcast. But it was on it, and that tire was really good. I enjoyed that tire. Had no complaints. It stuck really well. I had good front end feel. There was no signs of wear. Obviously, I didn't do heaps of laps on it. It's not possible at these media introduction days to do excessive tyre wear testing. But it looked fine. There was no chunking. There is some, a little bit of rock in that surface there at Appen. It's obviously mostly clay and sticky as clay. But I had no dramas grip-wise from those tyres. You get on the factory spec tyre. Oh, my. It wasn't like massive, oh my God, I'm like glued to this, but you could tell the difference just on the lean angle and the drive, and just, I love a front end feel to a bike, and this just gave me the feels in the right areas that I wanted, and it was so positive that I could tell that thing was tire related. So that was awesome to be on that Dunlop factory tire. That was a, once in a lifetime. Maybe I'll get another chance at that. We'll see. But that alone was cool. Now, the other part of this that was really cool was that, and I'm not going to repeat the numbers because I'm not 100% certain that these are accurate, but the price of the suspension on the bike, front and rear, this factory KYB stuff that was on there, was quite high, let's say. Let's talk nearly, tens, thousands of dollars for these forks, and not far off that for the shock. And apparently, these KYB factory components are only available to CDR Yamaha, Star Racing Yamaha, and the Yamaha factory team in Europe for MXGP. So they're pretty rare, this setup. And look, when you get on this bike, I said to one of my mates who was there in another outlet when he got on directly after me, I said, you need to ride this bike like you mean it. Because as we all probably assume, factory riders are fast, and they're going to hit stuff a lot harder than you do, and in a manner that needs the suspension to be stiffer and hold up better and not go through the stroke and not bounce them off, and obviously, allow them to hit and case things at a much greater pace. And so I got on this assuming, and like Jed said, you're probably going to say it's stiff. I got on assuming it was going to be stiff. I was pleasantly surprised. Now, everybody else that got off the bike media-wise, apart from the pro guys, Dylan Wills was there, Prudy was there, they had goes. They probably said otherwise. I didn't hear exactly what they said about it. But everybody else that I heard get off from the standard media side of things was not stoked on how stiff that suspension was. Personally, and I don't claim to be that fast, I'm all right. But I got off this thing and was stoked on the suspension side of things. It was what I assumed a factory bike would be. It was a bit stiffer than I would, generally set my own stuff, but it was capable of being ridden in a manner that as long as you meant to do something, it was going to support you. If you were tiptoeing around, yeah, I could see how you would dislike it. But if you were giving it to it and hitting the ruts and positively going for a line, this thing stuck like glue. It was smooth. It had no issue. There's no way I was going to bottom the damn thing. But it was smooth through the small chop. It gave me great drive. It was stable in the front. It didn't deflect off anything. I could stick it into the tightest of ruts and it would just turn. And the other thing that I noticed about it too, some of the ruts that had happened throughout the day with the stock bike, you started to get a bit of chatter as you were coming out of them, as in the back end wanted to go and not be smoothly driving it across those acceleration bumps. When I got on Jed's bike, I was able to drive that thing through those ruts and I basically didn't notice those acceleration bumps. It was just following the contour of the ground and driving me forward, and like I said, it was buttery smooth. It's the best way to describe it. So the suspension was awesome. The tires were awesome. The motor. Let's get to the motor. Now, again, you assume that this bike has got a piston, some head work, different mapping, different fuel. You think it's going to be a fire-breathing dragon is basically what I'm getting at here, right? You think factory bike, this isn't going to rip my arms off. Well, again, I was pleasantly surprised. I ride these bikes, as I said earlier in this podcast, in such a low rev range, just looking for the grunt. And what Jed said earlier, that he likes to lug his bikes in third gear, me and him must be cut from the same cloth in that aspect, because this bike was power where I wanted it, but just that touch stronger than what you got on the stock motor. It wasn't excessive. It wasn't ripping my arms out. But when I wanted to get out of a corner and head to the back, the top of the hill at Appen there and the track where there's the step up the hill, man, I got there in a hurry. And I got there easily. Like, the motor was strong. The pipe, the Pro Circuit pipe that is on it, it gave it a different tone and a different, just like deeper grunt sound to it. And oh man, it was beautiful, the sound of this bike. And I was loving it. The only negative I have about this whole thing is, oh my God, Jed, I don't know how you use that clutch, but geez Louise, that thing was in an awkward position. So I've always dreamt of riding these like factory team rider bikes, right? And just leaving it exactly where it is so that I understand what they are doing on the bike and I can comment on what they like in their setup. Now, everything else about this bike was pretty neutral, right? Peg position, there's nothing funny about the seat. There was no cuts, no bumps. There was just a gripper seat on it with a ribbed gripper seat. That's fine. Used to that. Had that. What wasn't cool, his bars were a little bit lower and bent down than swept back than I expected. I thought he might have had a more flatter, taller bar, he's not overly tall, but I think he's taller than me. Couldn't quite tell you that exactly because he's on crutches all day, so I couldn't measure up to him as such. But I thought, so they were a bit swept back more, mostly was what I noticed. But the clutch, the front brake position, not so much. It was okay. I could manage. The clutch position was up, and the engagement point of this clutch was like right at the end of my finger extension. Like I could barely get this thing to pull in, and it was on. Like it was on and off like a light switch. It was that sensitive, but at that funky ass angle up in the air. Like you've seen pros with them up high. That's what this was. And I don't know why. Maybe it'd been bumped in the truck. I didn't get a chance to ask Jed afterwards if that was normal. But Aaron Tanti was there and he'd been riding that bike as warmed the bike up before all us media guys got on it. And as soon as I got off and I said, everything's great except that clutch, that thing, you can keep that. Tanti said exactly the same thing. He said it's in an awkward position and it's like a light switch. And I'm like, yep, we're on the same page here. And the mechanics all laughed and said, that's how Jed likes it. So whatever, that's his thing. But everything else about this bike was as you would expect a factory bike to be. Just damn sexy. It was awesome. I want to do that again. Craig, if you're listening, Craig Dack, next time you come to one of these intros, bring one of those bikes. I'm having another crack because that was well worth the admission fee. So look, if you're out there wondering about Jed Beaton's bike, it's as good as you think it is. Don't worry about the clutch. We can move the perch down for anybody else wanting to have a ride next time. But yeah, it's a strong motor. It's a smooth suspension package that's stiffer than you expect it to be, as you expect it to be, I should say. And yeah, the tyres, factory tyres, get me a set of them. I might have to sneak some of them off the truck in Supercross and see if they notice. But yeah, look, Jed Beaton's bike, fantastic experience to get on board with. All right, guys and girls, that's our show. That's our Yamaha exclusive, I dare say, but heavy Yamaha content. Thanks to all the guys from Yamaha Motor Australia and girls for having us out there and all that they did to get this event to happen. It's not easy to organise, 10 media guys to come out, stay at a hotel. They put us up at Campbelltown Ridges. Anyone out there needing to stay in the Campbelltown area? Campbelltown Ridges is a nice joint. So yeah, they put us up there. They fed us dinner. They got us out to the tracks. Had catering there at the tracks. Had the team truck. All the riders, team of guys, 10 bikes. Fantastic day. Thanks for having us out. Look forward to the next one. Make sure you bring a factory bike for us to ride again. But the YZ450 is a good bike. The 2026 model is fantastic. The improvements have definitely been worthwhile. Hopefully you got what you needed. If you want any more information about this bike, maybe I didn't touch on something specific enough for you, send me a DM, AlwaysMoto on social media. Email me, info@alwaysmoto.com. If you want to get a t-shirt order, but also use that email if you want to just send through some questions. I'm happy to talk to you guys and girls out there. If you're interested in certain part of it to help you with your purchase, please get in touch. Happy to talk motorbikes anytime of any day, every day of the year. That's my thing, if you haven't already figured that out. But share this around for us, guys and girls. Subscribe to the podcast feeds. Tell your mates to listen to it. If you haven't already, leave a rating on your podcast player. Don't forget the written article with some images of me on the bike, the statics of the bike, the hydraulic clutch, the clickers. They're on the Full Noise article, so go to fullnoise.com.au. But that's it for this show. Thanks to TechnicMotorsport.com, Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, and Tech 167 3D Printing for the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done again, and we will see you at the track.